Political philosophy of Tilak. Tilak did not discuss the politically perfect society nor the features of a best state as discussed by Aristotle, Plato, or Hegel. His main aim in life was the political emancipation of India. His political thought was a combination of Eastern thoughts and Western thinkers. His political philosophy was influenced by Eastern thoughts of metaphysics when he pointed out that metaphysics of non-dualism of the Vedanta implied the political conception of natural right. Because the spirit is the supreme reality and because all men participate in that absolute essence, hence all have the same autonomous spiritual potentiality. Hence, Advaitism taught Tilak the supremacy of the concept of freedom. Freedom of Tilak was a divine attribute and without it no moral or spiritual life was possible. Foreign imperialism kills the soul of the nation and so Tilak fought against the British rule. On the other hand, his political philosophy of democracy, nationalism and self-determination was based on Western thinkers like Mill, Burke, Mazzini and Woodrow Wilson. Swaraj was the focal point of Tilak's philosophy. Tilak gave moral, spiritual, political and economic connotations of Swarajya. Morally, it meant the attainment of the perfection of self-control, which is essential for performing one's duty, Swadharma. Spiritually, it meant realization of spiritual inner freedom accompanied with admiration. Politically, it meant self-home rule. Economically, it meant Swadeshi. Thus, for Tilak, Swarajya was not only a right but a dharma. He wanted to secure all which would be possible only if people were free from all kinds of domination. Thus, Tilak's political philosophy was a synthesis of Eastern and Western thoughts. Tilak's views on nationalism. Nationalism means feeling of oneness within a group of people on the basis of common language, common descent, political desire for self-determination, common territory, economic grievances against imperialist powers. This psychological bond are dormant at times. Tilak felt that in such situation, people could be mobilized through common religion and common heritage. He recognized that the Vedas and the Gita would provide spiritual energy and moral enthusiasm to the nation. And on the other hand, celebration of Shivaji and Ganpati festivals would provide opportunities of brotherhood which would rejuvenate the educated and liberalize and enlighten the masses. Thus the traditions and memories of historical figures would generate a sense of pride and respect which would foster the spirit of nationalism among the people. He believed that the nationalist spirit built on old foundations would serve as a tonic to strengthen the foundations of the nation. Thus, Tilak's nationalism had a revivalistic orientation. Tilak's views on British Raj. Tilak was clear about the nature of British Raj. He believed that they were here to enslave the people and exploit our resources. For example, the British government exported food grains to England in spite of famine in India. He believed that sending petitions and appealing to the British government and bureaucrats was futile. The British would never concede anything if it harmed their interests. Therefore, it was necessary to put pressure to secure one's demand rather than use constitutional methods. Because during British Raj, there was only a penal code and not a constitution. He realized that to arouse people emotionally was to base one's demands on the theory of natural rights rather than constitutional methods which appealed to the theory of legal rights under the Constitution. Tilak believed that purity of means was important, but under certain circumstances it cannot be a rigid rule. That is, not to abandon the goal just because it cannot be achieved by fair means, and not to hesitate to use other means to achieve the goal, and in course of time the means will be justified in the end. To Tilak, the ultimate goal of the national movement was Swaraj. He accepted that politics should be separated from religion, but under certain circumstances, religion, a powerful emotional appeal, should be utilized to unify people. Tilak insisted that Swaraj was a moral and religious necessity for every man and group. For his moral fulfillment and for the performance of religious duties, man needed to be free. Without political freedom, higher freedom is impossible. Thus, Swaraj is our dharma. To endeavor to attain it is our karma yoga. Thus, Tilak had a definite program of action to arouse mass enthusiasm and to ensure people's involvement in the national movement, which was based on 4 factors: national education, boycott, Swadeshi, and passive resistance. He contributed to the development of each of these programs. First, boycott. Tilak observed that the British economic policies was responsible for the decline of India's art and industries, trade and commerce, and increased dependency on agriculture. Indian goods had to face unequal competition from foreign goods due to free flow of foreign goods. Thus the British impoverished and economically ruined India. It was meaningless to expect the British government to protect our industry and commerce. So he urged the people to boycott foreign goods and to adopt Swadeshi. For example, His call for Swadeshi led to bonfire of foreign clothes. The only way of salvation of the country was the coordinated efforts of the people themselves. The adoption of boycott would hit the exploitation motives of the imperialist. It would create determination among the Indian people to sacrifice their immediate interests for the good of the nation. It will help the Indian industry to develop and regain its place in the Indian economy. For example, he persuaded many businessmen to start mills for weaving clothes and factories for manufacturing soaps and matchboxes. Second, Swadeshi. This encouraged people to use indigenous products even if they were costly. It urged the Indians to establish industries instead of applying for bureaucratic jobs. The movement had plans to train Indians in the art of industry and commerce. If more people boycotted foreign goods, then there would be more demand for Swadeshi goods. Swadeshi would bring prosperity to Indian industries, crafts and trade, and would cripple imperial interests of the British. He launched Paisa Fund in Maharashtra to collect money which was utilized for setting up a glass factory at Talegaon in Pune. The Bombay Swadeshi stores was formed by Tilak and Jamshedji Tata to promote Indian-made products. Third, passive resistance. Tilak insisted on non-payment of taxes and revenues, not to assist in the administration, not to assist in fighting outside India, training people for self-rule by organizing our own administrative units parallel to British institutions, that is to establish our own courts, police, etc. at the villages, taluks and district level. Thus, it was a silent revolt against British imperialism. Fourth, national education. The Western educational system established by Lord Macaulay was harmful for the future of India because it aimed at creating a class of people who were Indian by blood but intellectually and culturally closer to the West and loyal to the British. It deprived the Indian youths of their own religion, culture, heritage, and the younger generation had no respect and appreciation for Indian traditions. Hence, they drew a scheme of education called the national education, which would remove despondency and skepticism and inculcate self-respect in the minds of the people and also pull out people from defeatist mentality. This education would strengthen the spirit of nationalism to secure Swaraj and to shape India's glorious future. Tilak outlined 4 factors essential for constituting a system on national education. First, religious education. Tilak advocated religious education for building one's character because it kept people away from evil deeds. He was criticized for emphasizing on religious education, but he held the view that the Hindu religion advocated religious tolerance towards other religions. He instructed one to stick to one's own religion. Second, vernacular language. Tilak advocated education in vernacular languages to reduce the burden and cost of learning. Third, technical and industrial education. Tilak stressed on technical and industrial education because lack of it had prevented industrial growth. He believed that with industrial growth, India could become a self-reliant country. Fourth, political education. Tilak believed that political education should be imparted in educational institutions to enlighten the students about their rights and duties. The government must establish educational institutions to impart education to the future generations, which would help them with good life, to earn their livelihood and become true citizens. If the government was unwilling to do so, then educationalists and generous people should donate money and work with a strong will for the national education mission. To fulfill his objective, he established the New English School in 1850 and the Ferguson College in 1885, where scientific and technical knowledge of the West, along with our traditional heritage, was imparted. Tilak gave the people of India the first lessons on the rights of Swaraj. He made the people aware that the will of the natives had to be recognized by the imperialist powers, and therefore he was recognized as a prophet of Swaraj and no doubt the father of Indian unrest as characterized by Valentine Chirol for awakening and unifying the masses.